Salam Sejahtera and welcome to another edition of Perception, where we discuss issues of daily topical concern among multicultural Malaysians of all walks of life. Ladies and gentlemen, our topic of discussion today is Perak in the 13th general elections. And to discuss this subject is none other than the former Menteri Besar of Perak, Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Niza Jamaluddin, who is also the Honourable Member of Parliament for Bukit Gantang and State Assemblyman for Pasir Panjang in the Perak State Assembly. YB Datuk Seri, on behalf of TV Pass, I thank you sincerely for being with us on this edition of Perception.
Well, you're most welcome.
YB, there was much anger and resentment among the Perak electorate when the democratically elected Pakatan Rakyat government was dethroned by dubious means by the Barisan Nasional. Has that anger and resentment subsided, or is it still a seething and burning issue in the consciousness of the Perak electorate?
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. قال الله تعالى في الكتاب العزيز يا أيها الذين إن مكناهم في الأرض أقاموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة وأمروا بالمعروف ونهوا عن المنكر ولله عاقبة الأمور. Those who we have accorded them with temporary power to manage this world, they utilize that power to establish prayers. They also use that power to manage their funds and their finances. They also use that power to establish truth and to eradicate falsehood. And they believe in Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alhamdulillah wa shukru lillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-'aliyyil 'azim. First of all, I must thank Mr. Gilbert as well as Harakah Daily and TV Pass for inviting me this afternoon to have this session of perception. I think the question posed by Mr. Gilbert is very pertinent. Not only that the issue of dethroning the People's Alliance government in Perak is still a burning issue in the whole state, but it's also a burning issue in the whole country, particularly as well in those who are keeping in touch with the issues of political development. I must say that as far as Perak is concerned, there are two types of or three types of spectrum of society that is taking charge or probably giving a lot of consideration on this issue of dethroning the government. And number one, for those who are highly informative, who have got access to various media, I think the issue is forever burning. That is probably in the higher echelon of the society, those within the urban, suburban area. Then there is this other group that are the fence-sitters. Okay, now they have been in the 50-50, saying that it might be true, it might not be true, or it might be the case that is allowed, it might not be the case which is allowed. And there are these other small group of people, particularly those in the very far remote Malay villages. They just couldn't take any notice of it. And as far as they're concerned, so long as there is a government, irrespective of how the government is being brought into power, they just accept it. So I must say that in general, the issue of grabbing of power by Barisan Nasional towards the People's Alliance is in general still a burning issue. I can safely say that in as far as a couple of by-elections, particularly in Cebu, or probably just the recent by-election in Sarawak, I think one of the major issues that have been expounded by Pakatan Rakyat, which made inroads into the Sarawakians to leave Barisan Nasional, was these burning issues of dethroning Perak legal government. So on that count, I must admit that this is a burning issue. It is only how well Pakatan Rakyat is going to play it on a continuous and sustainable basis, so that it always becomes a point that people will remember and they will take note, and as a result of that, they will probably take heed of it. So to answer to Mr. Gilbert's question, I must say that it is a burning issue, and we hope that it will be forever a burning issue. Yeah, thank you.
YB, do you agree with the overwhelming perception of Malaysians throughout the country, as well as the world at large, that this hijacking episode is the darkest hour of Malaysian democracy and representative of the evil triumph of the scourge of money politics in recent times?
Well, I would have thought so, as far as the political and social awareness is concerned. So this incident is a black history, not only in terms of our democratic principles has been completely violated, but both the constitution, the federal as well as state constitution, has been deliberately violated as well. So I would totally agree to a very large extent that this illegal grabbing of power or dethroning of the people's government in Perak at this particular time and era, in 2009, it certainly puts a black mark on Malaysian history, and I think it's also an indication of democratic principles have been completely raped, and at the same time people's choice have been left aside. So I would agree to say that it is actually one of the darkest history from democratic principles as well as from religious disciplines, from human ethics as well. It has more or less transcends all those. So I would say that this is darkest history in the political development and political landscape of this country now.
YB, although Pakatan Rakyat's tenure was short, it initiated a host of pro-Rakyat programs for the Perak electorate. Could you highlight some of the key achievements?
Well, I think that's a very relevant question, Gilbert. Number one, we must also ensure that when we were given the mandate by the people of Perak, probably about 54% of them, at that time there was only a very loose coalition between PKR or Keadilan at that time and PAS under Barisan Alternative. DAP was not in Barisan Alternative at that point, but then we worked together. So when the mandate was given, and I was given the trust to lead the People's Alliance, so to speak, and incidentally, People's Alliance was officially announced in Perak. So we had several policies that we drafted, and at the same time we tried to implement them. Okay, now Barisan Alternative at that time, we had a concrete manifesto. We went into the election with the Barisan Alternative manifesto, whereas it was fully supported by the AP at that time. So when we assumed the power and the government was there, so we tried as far as possible to implement all those manifestos that we have agreed. Now, one of those things that really came to our mind at that time was to quickly resolve the many years issues that have not been settled that's pertaining to land issues, which has been a major point, a sore point by many Perakians who were without land and without home at that time. Now, I must say that Perak is or was the only state at that time where the number of new villages was the most in the whole country. In Perak, we had 134 new villages, comprising of not less than 47,000 families. Now, they were already staying in those new villages for almost 70 years, even before Merdeka. There was this breaks plan at that time to move them from the jungles into those camps, they call it, near the towns. Now, we made a promise that those inhabitants of government land, either they are in new villages or arranged planned villages, without any titles, we will issue them with land titles which are perpetual. So what we did at that time, the manifesto says that we have to accord those which have been residing for a long time in Kampung Baru or new villages for almost 70 years, in the planned villages for I think about 30 to 40 years. And incidentally, the new villages comprise of probably 90%, 95% of Chinese communities, and the planned villages, probably 90 to 95% are Malay communities. Now, the new villages, the land was only 20, I think the size was only 20 to 40, whereas the planned villages, the size was 60, 90, or slightly smaller. So we gave them land titles, which made it as a good move, because we recognize the people of Perak who were landless. Then they have got a piece of land in their name and an official title issued. And for the first time in the Perak history, that these people were able to call the land a home for them to stay. Now, the planned villages comprise of 349 planned villages, which the government can create new areas and turn them into planned villages. Unlike new villages, you cannot create new ones. 134 is all that is there, and you have to live with it. But planned villages, you can still open up many other places and start making planned villages. So those were the items that we did to quickly imprint in the minds of the Perakians that change is coming. On the other hand, there are also Tanah Orang Asli, which are the customary lands belonging to Orang Asli, and some sizable Indian communities which are staying in the plan as well as the new villages. They have been given that land titles perpetual as well. Now, I think that was one of the things that made us a trademark. Secondly, we also discovered at that time that there were many Perakians who had to pay a very continuous once in 2 months water bill. So what I did at that time, and also in line with the manifesto, was those Perakians which have got a household income of less than 700 per month, so we gave them free of charge water supply for the first 20 meter cube. So at least about 17,000 families enjoy that. Okay. Number 3, we also provided some Perakians whose sons or daughters were able to secure a seat in any government higher institution, a first degree, so long as the parents earn less than 1,500 per month. So we supported by giving 1,000 for first entry. Fourthly, we also provided some incentive for families who earn less than 1,000 per month, this household income, that if they have a parent who passes away at the age of 65 and above, therefore the People's Alliance government provided an incentive just to support the ceremonial rites or whatever of each community, a value of 1,000. And I think that 4 items that we implemented gave an impact into the coming of the new government. Okay, there were a few other items that we did as well, but we could not see it materialize because it was quite a sojourn period. Okay, so I would say that during our period, those items that we implemented were for the good of the people that they could see at that time.
YB, when these pro-Rakyat programs were initiated, there was a lot of criticism by the Barisan Nasional on a daily basis. Yet, when they assumed power through the back door, they unashamedly duplicated these initiatives. Could you care to comment?
Well, I think there's a lot of truth in what Gilbert was saying. I must say that during our time, I was approached by the directors of the Chinese private schools. There are 9 together in Perak, and they requested some sizable cash from me as a sign of supporting Barisan Nasional. So traditionally, the MB provided with these schools, the board of directors, a certain sizable amount, and it has been a custom. So at that point in 2008, when we assumed power, they approached and they said that, look, the previous MBs gave us that much, and I was telling them, look, it is not right for me to do that. But I can only say, I told them that we can award you with 1,000 hectares of land, which we identify where that land is, and then we will probably give it to the 9 schools. At the same time, the same size of land, 1,000 hectares, to the private religious institution, the Islamic institution, and a small amount to the government-supported Indian schools as well. Now, that has been emulated by the existing government. They probably just increase the size of the private religious school to slightly more. But what I'm saying is, at that time when we did those action, we were being duped as becoming a stooge of DAP. Now, I couldn't be bothered, because I felt that to give taxpayers' money to each of these 9 schools, a substantial amount of cash per year, I think that's unbecoming. But if I provide them with 1,000 hectares of land, and they will have to work on it, and the government will just probably charge them a very nominal premium and tax, therefore they can earn some product of that land, or whether they want to turn it into whatever, plantation for palm oil, you name it, then they can actually share that, which probably is much more than what the government could give in terms of cash. So I must say that all those that we have drafted and we implemented were unashamedly emulated by Barisan Nasional now. The only thing is they were saying it in a different style. But to me, as far as it is for the good of the people, they may claim the credit, and it's entirely them. As far as we are concerned, it's for the good of the people. So thanks God that they have copied, so to speak, of what we did. And I think I felt pleased, because whatever we planned, they carried it out. So in a way, it was initiated by the People's Alliance government. Then we have a name imprinted in the minds of Perakians.
YB, the nation is on high alert in respect to the 13th general election. Would the hijacking of the democratically elected state government come to haunt the Barisan Nasional?
I think it is to a certain extent. They tried to more or less downplay that grabbing issue, so that it is not being sustained in as far as political spheres are concerned. But because it is a tragedy which has affected a state like Perak, I would have thought that if it is other states, then the impact may not be that significant. So it has haunted Barisan Nasional to a certain extent, because it has a long effect, and I think it has backfired. If I can rightly say that the by-elections in Kuala Terengganu, the by-elections in in Bukit Gantang thereafter, just immediately after the dethroning, I think it all was favorable to Pakatan Rakyat. Cebu and Sarawak was in particular. So I think it is still haunting Barisan Nasional, and particularly UMNO. I must also say that UMNO tried to cover and downplay that issue by trying to justify in the eyes of the Malay community living in far remote Malay villages by saying that they must grab the power at whatever cost, in whatever name, because they duped the government as a Chinese government. So UMNO, as usual, played the racial sentiment just to get and to condone what they have done to be justified in the eyes of the Malay communities. They said that the Pakatan Rakyat government was a Chinese government. So at all costs, we have to bring back the Malay government. So that has been played by UMNO Barisan Nasional even up to now. So I think when they use that sort of tactics in trying to approach and justify what they do, I think it's an indication that it is haunting them. You know, and up to now, as far as the urban and the suburban communities are concerned, I think they have failed to delete that out of their minds. You know? So I must say that that failure to delete is an indication that it's still haunting them. You know, so I think in the coming election, which is just round the corner, most probably we shall play that issue. Finally, I must also say that in as far as the election in Sarawak was concerned, the people of Sarawak would like to know the details of the grabbing of power, which they only knew through existing media. Now, the common people in Sarawak, they would like to know in details. Now, we were being restricted from going to Sarawak during the state election because on purpose, the Barisan National Government made an assembly during those periods, between the 12th up to the 15th of April. Whereas that should be an election, a nomination in Sarawak. So we were being prevented to go to Sarawak, primarily to inform the Sarawakians of what happened at the grabbing of power. Now, initially, the Barisan National Government made the assembly to be on the 5th of April, but they postponed it to be on the 12th so that we could not participate with our other People's Alliance in Sarawak. So I think there has been a move to prevent the information from going even further and causing more influence in the eyes of the Malaysians to remember that those grabbing of power cannot be tolerated at this time. So I think it is still haunting Barisan Nasional, and certainly as far as we are concerned, and we hope that throughout the nation, this illegal dethroning of the People's Alliance government must be in the forefront to create that awareness so that they will leave Barisan Nasional and start supporting Pakatan Rakyat, insyaAllah.
YB, apart from the hijacking of the democratically elected state government, what are the other contentious issues that would take center stage at the 13th general election in Perak?
I think the grabbing of power in Perak was actually an integral factor of many other reasons. Number one, because there were some elements of racism that have allowed for that power to be grabbed. Number two, a high level of corruption. Number three, there were threats. Number four, there were high abuse of power and a blatant misuse of government agencies to be the apparatus of Barisan Nasional that have allowed for the grabbing of power. So apart from the grabbing of power per se, in making that as a main issue or one of the main issues in the 13th general election, then the domination of these other factors that have contributed to the grabbing of power, which I said abuse of power, misuse of state government agency or federal government agency, and a high level of corruption, those contributed to the grabbing of power. And I think that can also play a center stage in trying to highlight that the grabbing of power is not an isolated case. It's actually several factors are put into play that have allowed the defection of the three, or the two initially, and then three followed by four, of Pakatan Rakyat state assemblymen and state assemblywomen. So I must say that the center stage, not just in the grabbing of power in Perak, but it must also highlight the contributive factors, which are high level of corruption. I think it's a well-known fact that the CPI of Malaysia is very high. We are now number 56, I must say, and also the high abuse of power. At the same time, the total complete influence and control by upper hands or hidden hands to the Malaysian judiciary system, right from the High Court until the Court of Appeal, as well as the Federal Court. So I think that can play a major role in the center stage in trying to highlight the awareness for the people, for them to leave Barisan Nasional and start supporting Pakatan Rakyat.